Hello, and welcome to another podcast episode of Closing Deals in Heels. I am your host, Kayla Hodges, and today we have a fabulous woman. Her name is Alexus Rae, and this woman I've seen transform so much in the past couple months, just really stepping into her leadership, really dominating in her field. And there's something so special about her. And I'm so excited for you to be able to meet her because she's been through so much. And the way that she shines so bright and the way that she makes you feel is like out of this world. So, Miss Alexis, if you want to come to the stage. Hi, Queen.
Hello. Hi.
Hi. She didn't know I was going to introduce her like that. But hi, beautiful. I am so excited that you are here. I've been watching you over the past few months. You are in high ticket sales, but super high ticket, right?
Yeah. High ticket coaching and high ticket in the sense like the first packages I worked on when I got into high ticket remote sales were like 2K to 6K. And then at the beginning of this year, I jumped up to programs that ranged from like 30 to 60K. So it was a totally different conversation.
Yes. And I think that's really beautiful that you get to be in a place of talking to somebody on a one call close and
Yeah.
selling, 40K, 30K plus packages. Tell us like a little bit about like your journey and your background and how you got here to be selling this.
Sure. Okay. So I was born to entrepreneurs. I promise I'm not going to tell you my whole life story, but it's kind of where it starts. My mom and grandma were like OG Tupperware ladies. So I started out in sales selling Tupperware at like mall kiosks, if you remember that kind of
Oh
thing.
my God.
Yeah. So that's kind of where, like, when I say I've been around sales my whole life, I really mean it. But it was in 2022 when I switched back over to sales after being in operations in the roofing industry. And I switched because my health changed.
Okay.
And I needed something that was going to allow me not have to be in operations anymore. I sustained my sixth brain injury, which basically meant like I didn't really want to pay attention to details anymore.
Okay.
um,
Okay. So what I heard you say is that you started off in Tupperware sales, right? As a kid. How old were you at this kiosk?
like so there was always Tupper Kids. So there was like a week every summer, and I started doing that when I was like 6. But I started working the kiosk when I was about 8 years old.
Okay, at a mall.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you're walking up to people and you're trying to get them to stop. Like, did you have a line to get them to stop, or what did you say?
Oh man, that's a great question actually. I'm sure that we did. To be honest, what I exactly said probably is going to escape me in this moment, but I'm pretty positive it was a question. Like something along the lines of, "Hey, do you need or do you struggle with?" And then if they said yes, like, "Oh, well, is this something like you want to kind of check out?" And then we just kind of went from there.
Okay. I love this so much because conditioning kids in sales changes the trajectory of their life and gives you like permission to not be scared to talk to strangers. And I think that
Yeah.
that's something that's really missed today because every kid is on tablets.
Oh, totally. I mean, it was conversational from the beginning. To top it off, I also was kind of, not to get crazy religious, but I was raised in a religion where we did a lot of public speaking. So,
Mhm.
like, conversations and talking with people, I feel like has been something that has been in my life my entire life. And I had really good examples for it. So, I am grateful for that.
Yeah. And then you
And
grew up
then,
into roofing sales.
yeah.
How that
So,
felt.
sorry. Um, Grew up, got into roofing. So my dad was a roofer, and I always tell people like roofing doesn't you don't go looking for roofing, like roofing finds you. And I felt really at home in the roofing industry for about 11 years. And in that time, I both was in operations and sales. Um, I guess the part that's most important, I would say, is in 2022 is when I switched back over to sales. And that's when I really started to learn that there was a specific finesse. There was a specific way that you could guide a conversation, less about a presentation, which is what I had learned in Tupperware sales, right? Like, let me give you all this information and see if it fits what you need in your kitchen. And now it was like really trying to build a relationship with them. I
Mm.
also think it's always personal. Like, sales is change. And you say that so much. And you were probably the one that said it first. That's really stuck with me. Roofing felt personal for me because I was selling residential roofing to start. And it's like I'm giving them the thing that protects all of their memories, right?
Mm.
Their kids' pictures and their Christmas trees and like what is their home. And then when I started selling commercial roofing, it's like, okay, my dad has a business. My mom had a business. Like, this roof that's on this building that's for your tenants, this is someone's livelihood.
Mm.
And even now in what I sell, like, it's always personal. So I think that's what I really felt at home with in the roofing industry until I didn't.
I love that you said that. I think that people get lost and thinking that they're not selling an outcome of what something is. Like, you're not selling a home, you're selling the results of what that home does for you, right? Which is like provide safety or significance or create the memories, like you just said. You're not selling the roof, you're protecting the family. You're not selling the commercial roof, you're protecting the business. And when you think like that, it helps you close because you're not focusing on just closing the sale. You're trying to close the outcome. You're trying to help somebody, right? And that's what sales is like you being able to help someone. So I love that reframe. I think it's really, really good that you thought like that at the beginning. Now I know that you mentioned a couple things. I don't know if you want to go into it or not, but like what happened? You said your sixth brain injury, like are you in some crazy fighting ring or
No, girl, I'm just a 5'1" woman in a world who decided that I'm gonna not be determined by my size. So in high school, the sport that I picked to like be my sport was basketball. And I just played with reckless abandonment in the best way. Like, that's what I wanted to be good at. And that was my goal. And kind of the mentality that I brought to sports is the same mentality that I bring to every other area of my life, and it's that I freaking want to win. So I had four, I had four sports related brain injuries slash concussions in high school and my freshman year of college. So I played junior college basketball, and then in 2021 is when I sustained my sixth. So there was a minor one in there. It wasn't a big deal.
you were 5'1" playing college ball. Like, can we just give you some props? That's unheard of. That's amazing.
Thanks. Yeah, it was unheard of. And everyone, not everyone, but many people told me that like I was dreaming too big. And at that point in my life, it was just like, okay, I'm going to show you that I can do it anyways because it's what I want. So I'm really grateful for that. And I'm also grateful for the lessons that have come out of the brain injuries. I wish I didn't have to learn them so many times, but like now I really got it. So in 2021, I was in a car accident and I was hit by the airbag. I had to do 8 months of outpatient rehab.
Wow.
And it was in that recovery when I decided that operations no longer felt like a fit and it was time to shift back to sales.
Why is that though? Like for operations, like was it just overwhelming or like what was going on that would cause you to feel like this is not it?
Totally. So the position I was in was business manager for a distribution office, which basically meant that all administrative details were running through me, in addition to like executing some of those details on my own. We had started to build the team, so I had one direct report. But in that time of being away, it just kind of came to the realization that like the things that were on my plate no longer were the right things.
Mm.
And while I could have gone back, the amount of adaptation I would have needed to have in my role in order to be successful, like I had to do vision therapy because I couldn't see straight. I had to do cognitive therapy just to like remember how to keep my to-do list. And what that role needed, I no longer felt like I had the capacity to come in and like kill it the way that I was used to. So it was just kind of
Why would
time.
you feel like you would be able to kill it in sales if you couldn't kill it in operations? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Oh, that makes great sense because I knew that I could sit there and have a conversation with someone and connect with someone and listen to what they need. And then I could hand off the details of that project for someone else to go execute specifically.
Wow. Oh, that's good. How do you do cognitive therapy in order to remember a to-do list? Like, what would you have to do?
So there's like some apps that brain injury survivors can use. It's basically like brain training all over again. Like you just have to get your executive functioning up again. You have to get your number memorization up. Like, it was kind of just like
Wow.
brain training.
So like remembering numbers.
Yeah, and when I say numbers, it's like being able to remember, 5 or 6 numbers in a sequence when sometimes after a brain injury you can't even remember 2, right? And I was kind of somewhere in the middle.
That's so interesting. I think that so many of us, we don't realize how grateful we are for what we have.
Yeah.
Right. And until you go through a situation like that, you're like, oh, wow, because I didn't even know that. So I think that's really interesting. And good for you. Like 8 months of dedication and going through that, like that must have been hard to say the least. And then changing everything identity wise into your career and all this other stuff. What was
Oh
like
yeah.
the biggest aha personally, like through that time besides like work?
I am so glad that you just pointed out the true gratitude of like being able to function in our life, and it's in all the ways that we just are used to happening.
Yeah.
And I think the real aha that came out of the car accident, um because there were many other things, like it was almost like a universal accident, to be honest. Like I think that when we aren't following the things that we should be doing, we get signs, and I hadn't been listening to the signs for a while, so it was sort of like the universe put me in a universal timeout, like, hey girl, I really need you to sit down and think about what you're doing because you're not picking up what we're trying to show you like quick enough.
Oh my gosh, that's so good, Alexis. That's
So
so good. There's so much there. Have you seen these signs in other areas of your life or other times where you've listened now or you didn't listen?
yeah, I mean, my health is a big one. In 2022, I ended up in the hospital twice with 2 like fast onset kidney infections. Um,
Oh my God.
so most of my signs have like come through health, which is really bringing me to answer your first question of like, what was my big aha? And Kayla, I think it's just that after the accident, I feel like I've had like a second chance at life, and I'm going to do everything I possibly can to fulfill this potential that I feel like is inside of me, because it very easily could have not been the case.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good. What is the potential, Alexis? Like, what do you see for yourself? Like, when you look at the trajectory of your life, like, do you know clearly like where you're going or have an idea?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have like an avatar, a vision out there, like a picture for my life. And that just includes impacting the most amount of people that I possibly can in a positive way. And I'm sure that's going to come in a variety of ways. Right now, it comes in service through sales. And someday I hope it comes through kind of just being like the Tony Robbins of brain injury, essentially, and helping other women with my story that both relate to brain injury, that relate to professional burnout, that relate to, religious trauma recovery. Like I got a lot of stories in a short amount of life. So I just hope to keep telling that and helping other women do it.
Yeah. Yeah, the religious thing is definitely a huge thing to unpack. We don't have to go there. I think that I grew up, my stepmom grew up in the same religion that you're talking about, right? And so I grew up around her trauma around it, right? And so it was really interesting, like seeing and navigating all of that, navigating like her issues with her mom and things that had happened, and her not being able to celebrate certain things and how hard it was on her. And then it reflected us as kids, too. So it was really interesting, like just watching that and watching her need to like control different areas and feeling like everything had to be a certain way all the time. Watching that. Like, do you feel like that has translated to you and your being of like how like your home is? Or how
I think I'm laughing because I think that there's like a spectrum for this. So I was, and I think you've even seen, like, I'm still a recovering perfectionist, and just like letting things not be tidy, not even like tidy in the sense of a clean house, but like every to-do list item done. Or like it's okay that this morning I took a long morning routine because I was loving the book that I was reading. So I read like an hour longer than I ever meant to. And to have the self-compassion that like everything in life is still okay, even if my day doesn't go, or my week, or for example, my health conditions, like that is just the most interruption that you can have. And life doesn't stop, but we just learn how to keep moving through it and inside it and adapt to it and around it so that we can keep being our best selves. And when it comes to the unpacking, that deconstruction you're kind of talking about, I actually ended up doing a bunch of it at the same time as recovering from my car accident. So it's like all of my healing feels really interwoven.
Hey, beautiful. Pardon me as I take just one moment to interrupt this amazing conversation. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much for watching this podcast. You have no idea how much it means to me for us to be able to reach the hearts of so many women, which is what our mission is here. So if you can just do us a favor, please make sure you're subscribed to this channel. Please comment and like on this, any takeaways that you got, and please send this to a woman that you know. Whether she's in sales or she just needs a little encouragement, we as women really get to come together and light a fire in others' hearts and really stand to be in a world of what it's like for women to really empower and cheer each other on. I appreciate you so much. Thank you. And let's get back into the show.
Yeah, that's how it works sometimes.
Totally.
How you show up in one area is typically how you show up in another. And so when you start healing one area, it starts healing a bunch of other places all at once, because they all feel all intertwined because they're all you, right? And so I think it's beautiful that you were intentional about doing that work on yourself. And I love your perspective of sales and helping people. However, the past few months, you've really stepped into like selling more and closing more. Because I remember when we met, you were having a little bit of a hard time like selling these larger packages and having this expectation of like, oh crap, I have to do this. Like, can you kind of walk us through maybe that experience for yourself and like where you were a few months ago, like when you started this role or whenever you started this new role, and then now where you're at and the level of clarity and certainty you have within yourself and like kind of what changed?
Yeah, absolutely. So, to share with what's changed in the last 4 months, I just want to share that when I first started working in high ticket remote sales, I was doing it part-time for the first 9 months while I was still doing roofing sales. So I was like kind of had this little side hustle.
Yeah.
And things with the roofing company changed. And so it was at the beginning of 2024, I was like, that's it, full send. I'm going for it. And the universe aligned.
Go.
Yeah, the universe aligned. And I ended up with this amazing offer, basically kind of just in my lap. And
that's the one you're in now.
Yeah. And I share that, a little hesitantly because what I found is in high ticket sales, like finding the offer is the hardest part. For
Yes.
me, I got the offer. Then it was like, okay, now how do I do this? And in my very first month,
Like 5 times or 3, 4 times more than what it would normally was.
yeah, exactly. And now I had a full-time schedule. So that was exciting. I also was now the most junior person on this team. I still am. I'm like, the amount of time that I've lived life is the amount of time that the other women on my team have sales experience.
Damn.
So I came in my first month in January 2024. I freaking killed it. I broke like 2 records. It was amazing.
Let's go.
Then it was like, I really don't like, there were a couple of things that happened, but I hit a slump. Like it was basically from February until May that I felt like I was still trying to get my feet on the ground. Like I had a couple of sales. I had a couple of no sales months. I was worried about numbers. Like it was just all the bad things. And then I realized I was focusing on the bad things.
Yes.
And that's why I was continuing to have terrible months because I was already in this panic, right? Like it was so good in January. Then in February, it was like, okay, just ride the road. Then March was all right. Then April was terrible. And I was like, oh my gosh, why is this constricting? Like, what is happening? And I started focusing on that. And that's what kept coming.
Wow.
So then June came around and I was like, nope, that's it. Like, we're changing everything, right? It's what you focus on expands. That's where your energy flows. And so I started to get my mindset more dialed in on believing what I wanted, right? And believing that it was already here. And it started to like, okay, level out. I didn't feel like I was emotionally having a breakdown every single freaking day. So that was good. And then over the summer, basically Q3, I recommitted myself to, okay, great. Now that we have our mindset dialed in, let's really figure out this process. Because up to that point, I hadn't felt like the conversations I was having with these high level 6, 7, 8 figure CEOs, it wasn't matching what they needed in order for me to close them in 75 minutes. So it was in July that I was like, okay, I'm going to spend, Q3. I don't even know when that is. June, July, August? No. July, August, September. Okay, great. So it was in Q3. I was like, I'm going to spend time every single day studying materials and just getting into it. And I had already come across you and 7th level. So it was in July that I was like just going through all of your guys' free material. Started to like feel like, okay, this feels good because I also have a background in NLP and I see a lot of parallels between your guys' approach to sales and that. And I was like, this feels great.
So how did you find it? Like, how did you find me?
I found you through 7th level.
So you found me through Jeremy?
Yep. Okay,
cool. There you go, Jeremy.
Yeah. And I found and I had found you guys last year when I was still doing it part-time. But at that point I was like doing all right. I had what I needed. Fast forward a year, it wasn't the case anymore. So I was like, okay, let me go back to these things that feel aligned. And then I started with you in the middle of August. I was like, you know what? I was almost just going to curse. Sorry. So I was just like, F it, dude. We're going for it. I'm all in because I know I have the thing.
So January, you killed it.
Yep.
February, March, April, May, June, July, you're like roughing it.
I was doing okay, but it wasn't great. Yeah, I was roughing it.
When was the month where you the mindset? Was it like May, June? When was that?
May, June was when I realized that it was in my own mind. Yeah.
Okay. And what did you do for mindset? Like, did just Tony Robbins self-regulate? Like, what did you do?
Yeah, I love that question. So I think from sports and just what I know about personal growth, I went back to what works for me. So it was journaling, it was meditating, and it was also just like this absolute refusal to listen to the negative voice in my head.
Mm, that's so good. Yes, and you do accountability buddies for yourself and stuff too.
Yeah, so I run a weekly accountability group that's been going for 2 years now. And in that group, we always check in with weekly wins and then we focus on like what were your tasks. So everyone's working on a different area of their life. And we only try and put like 5 to 6 things on the list because we want it to be attainable every week.
That's so cool. Hell yeah. I love that. Okay. And then do you feel like in January? So I'm trying to figure out like what happened because I've seen this many times, including myself, where in sales I hit astronomical months and then I self-sabotage the next month. Okay. So do you feel like something like that happened where you didn't feel worthy of hitting that goal? Or was it just like a fluke? Or like, what do you feel happened from January to being like, oh, I'm breaking records to February being like, oh, what the hell happened?
Yeah, so I think it was, I Okay, let me back up. So, to your point of the self worth and that coming up, I definitely felt that more towards the summer, like after I had
Mm,
kind of been in the slump for a while. I think what brought on the slump to start was the fact that like I came out slinging and then other people on the team were like, I hope you know it's not going to be this easy the entire time. I hope you know that, like, it was almost like other people expected it to get hard for me, and I bought into that.
mm,
Additionally, we were possibly expanding the sales team even further, and I had referred a couple of ladies in. And in hindsight, like, even my sales manager and I had a great, like, um, I guess you'd call it reconciliation. Like we both acknowledged that when I started, it probably wasn't the right time for me to also try and be like encouraging these other ladies because their experience wasn't going as great as mine. And so almost like I gave too much of my energy away. So it was
mm,
like I bought into other people's story. And instead of just continuing to stay totally focused on me and what I was doing,
yeah.
I started giving some of that away and it definitely had an impact. So I had to pull that back. And that's like when the change came in May and June. And I was like, I'm done. I'm done listening to everyone else.
I've seen you grow so much since I didn't realize it was August. By God, I've seen you grow so much, not just like sales wise, but also personally. Your ability to communicate, your ability to show up powerfully, your ability to like be unapologetic about who you are. What has been like your biggest takeaways sales wise, and then personally, just since August from like being with us?
First, I just want to say I appreciate like your acknowledgement of my growth because it's been amazing to get to grow so much in a short amount of time and to feel like I've gotten guidance from you. So thank you for creating the space for that.
Of course.
On the sales side, it's 100% been the structure and the psychology of the sales call that has really made me feel better. I don't feel like when I get a close, it's like, oh, I don't know what I said that worked. It's like
Mm,
a repeatable process. And I
yeah.
literally talk to people about scaling their businesses all the time. And we talk about having a repeatable process. And I now feel like I have that for my sales conversations, which is just nice.
Yeah.
On the personal side of things, you have helped me break through that first layer of self-worth. And
Mm,
I guess maybe it's not the first layer. Let me say it's the deepest layer that I've gone to, right? Because I've been working on healing that for a long time. And every single time I want to go to a higher level, it's like it shows back up again and I have to figure out how to break through it. So at the right time, I was on one of your elite, is that the package I'm in? The elite, where like we have the expanded calls, and we were on the mindset call, and girl, like you held that mirror up for me so perfectly, and it stung so just right that I was like, I'm done with this old story, and I'm done with people having this experience of me, and I love it so much I just signed up again.
I didn't know that. That's amazing. Let's go. Yeah, Alexis, like, dear God, the version of you that I saw when I first met you versus now, like, it's crazy. You give permission to the other women in our group to step up. Like, you give that permission just by being yourself, just the essence of who you are. And not only that, but like you're continuously growing. And just a side note, like the unworthiness conversation will be there forever
Yeah.
because it's like your conversation, it's my conversation too. We all have like little, like you said, the inner voice that doesn't work. Like everyone has one, and they all say something different. One
Totally.
saying I'm unworthy, one saying like, hey, like you're stupid, whatever the unworthiness conversation is, it's all different for different people. We have the same one. So it's really interesting that you just said that, because I think that's so beautiful. And it makes me feel really grateful, because I've done so much work on the same thing, and had so many issues with that and faced it head on. It had, tremendous amounts of trauma healing around that. And so for you to be able to say that it helped you with yours, like, it just makes me so grateful of doing work myself, even though it was really, really hard because I didn't want to do anything like that. And the fact that it's transforming to somebody else now is so cool, because that means that you get to transform that to somebody else and somebody else and somebody else, especially because your vision is to be able to help people that also have had brain injuries and help people that also had like trauma around like religious groups and things like that. Like, that's so beautiful, because now you get to transcend that to somebody else, and they to somebody else. And I feel like sometimes we're on this earth just lighting fires in our hearts to light fires in other people's hearts. And you do that every day naturally. Like, you are doing that online. I'm seeing you show up even more online. I'm just really excited for you. And the growing and the learning doesn't stop. You just took another NLP course.
Yeah. I just went for my master practitioner of NLP, MER, and hypnotherapy. And so now I'm able to help people break through their limiting beliefs, rewire, these things that we're talking about. Like everything I shared so far has all been stuff that I had to do on the conscious level, right?
Mhm.
And our deepest level programming, or our deepest level layers of behavior, are all stored in our unconscious mind. And now to know that, one, I can help myself even faster, but like my clients that I'm working with, like we can just get in there, blow this stuff out, and get to the results that we actually want, which is just living the life that we know we're always meant to live that much sooner, because it's just waiting for us.
Mm-hmm. I think it's so beautiful. I've been obsessed ever since my first Tony Robbins event, because I'm like, how the hell does he have somebody break through like a way of thinking one way and change into something else? And I wanted to learn so bad, everything. And so I think it's so beautiful that you stepped into that you're working on yourself, that you're working on others, that you're focusing out. What is one tip that you would give to a woman that is in sales right now that feels like a little defeated? Maybe she had a good month and now she's not. Maybe right now she's listening to this. Hey girl, maybe you're listening to this right now and you are feeling just a little like overwhelmed. Maybe you're doubting yourself, doubting your capabilities. What's one tip that maybe you can give her, or one exercise or something where she can kind of get herself out of that way of thinking?
Oh, I would say there's so many things. I'm like, there's so many things. This is the exciting, fun part. To be precise. Okay. First, it's an acronym. All right. So the acronym is HOW.
Okay.
H stands for hope. Okay. If you've already done it in your past, you already have the proof. If you haven't done it yet, then find someone who is an example for you that lets you know it's possible. And by having hope in yourself, you know that you're going to create it, right? Whatever you walk relentlessly towards is going to be an outcome you get. The O stands for optimistic. So optimistically walk towards the thing, believing that you're going to get it, right? We can still be realistic that shit is hard, but if we're optimistic about the outcome, we're still going to keep moving forward. And will is the W of how. So we will it with our persistence. We will it with our resilience. We will it with our perseverance. And as long as you commit to continue and to keep going, it's all going to come together and you're going to get exactly what you want.
I love that. Yes, so good. And I think that you were saying earlier that you looked around and you realized that you were focusing on all the bad stuff versus focusing on all the good stuff. And I think that gratitude is one of the easiest things that you can do to focus on good, right? Like just find like what you're blessed about. Like, hey, like so blessed that my legs work. You know, I'm so blessed that I have food in my fridge. You know, I don't know about you, Alexis, but I mean, you said you grew up with entrepreneurs, so maybe you didn't have this experience, but I remember not having food in my fridge. So sometimes I open the fridge and I'm like, there's food in there. I remember like little kid Kayla would have been so excited that there's food that I'm allowed to touch in the fridge. And I think that we take so many things for granted, just like how you mentioned about like your brain and the sequences of numbers, and that sometimes you couldn't remember the next number, and how grateful we are that your brain's working out and like you healed that shit. No one else did that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad that you circle back to the gratitude because, yes, I was raised by entrepreneurs, but like I had to move to a bigger city to actually know what like big city entrepreneurs could do. And sometimes even when I talk to you about the sales and you throw out numbers like, oh yeah, 10 million a month. And I'm like, oh, I know that the people I'm talking to are barely even thinking about 1 million a year. Right. And so the gratitude and recognition of like where I am today is amazing to acknowledge like our own growth. And I feel like that gratitude fuels us to keep going. It's like when you look back and you realize that the woman that you are today has been through all of the hardest days, has overcome all of the moments that you didn't think you could survive, has reached down and found the courage and the strength to be who she wants to be and do what she had to do to get here today. And that gratitude for our unwavering spirit, like, is everything that you possibly need. And maybe for me, because most of my struggles, or not most, but many of them have come from my health, like, I know what it's like to not be able to get out of bed. Right? I know what it's like to not be able to think clearly. And so it feels so basic, I guess, to me every day to wake up and just be grateful for the fact that like my body functions. Wow. 2 years ago, I was still debilitated. 3 years ago, I was still in rehab. And like last year, I was begging for a calendar that looks the way that my calendar looks now. So anything's possible in a short amount of time.
I love that so much. Yes. What's one piece of advice that you would give to your younger self?
I still talk to little Lex a lot, so I'm still working on this. I think one piece of advice to her would be that I don't have to take it so serious and that it's all still going to be okay.
Yes. And speaking about being serious, have you ever experienced like in a sales role, regardless if it's this one or old one, where maybe somebody didn't take you seriously? And what happened and what did you do and what are you continuing to do moving forward?
Yeah. So when I was selling residential roofing, I mentioned being 5'1", right? So I'd show up to someone's house with the ladder on the back of my truck, walk up to their door, and they're like, wait, you're the one getting on our roof? I'm like, yes. Yes, I am.
I'm getting up there.
And I think the thing I really had to do specifically in that industry was to like know the knowledge, right? I had to be able to prove to people that
Mm,
I had the background and I knew what I was talking about so that they could be confident that I could confidently help them with the solution that they were looking for. And what that really, I think, translates to in my entire life is the mentality that if I don't know it, I'll learn it. And as long as I've always followed that, I don't feel like I've ever been steered wrong.
mm. I love that you talked about knowing stuff and knowledge because you developing your skill level, no one can ever take that away from you. Like if all the money, everything gets taken away, like no one can take away your knowledge and your skill set. You can always rebuild yourself and you continuously learning and developing yourself in multiple areas of your life. Look, you're developing NLP and you're developing your mindset and you're developing your skill set and you're continuously learning. You learn the industry and that has carried you industry year to year and you're continuing to learn and grow. Like, why is that so vital? Like, why is that so important? Why do women and people in general need to pay attention to that more?
Yeah, because growth is a choice.
Mm,
And you you're the one that said it. I've even started to say it to other people, but our greatest opportunity cost is knowledge.
mhm.
And if we aren't willing to get curious, I guess to for the woman listening to this, right? I think Kayla, you had asked like maybe about giving yourself permission. I think it just starts with getting curious about what's a different way that I could do this? Or what is something that I don't know about? Like I mentioned moving from a small town to a bigger city because I needed to learn what more opportunities were. It literally blew my mind. Like I didn't even know how big it was. And that wouldn't have happened had I not sought more knowledge, more experience, more learning. And so to bring it back to your first question, like it's vital because growth is a choice. And
Yeah.
when you choose to get the knowledge, you don't necessarily have to do anything with it, but it's kind of taking like the red or the blue pill in the Matrix. I don't really remember which one he takes, but once you get the knowledge, it's like you can't go back
Yeah,
because
I can unsee it.
life is almost just automatically better because you have a bigger perspective.
Mhm. That's so beautiful. I'm so honored to have you on here, Alexis. I'm just super proud of you. I want to continuously cheer you on. If you're watching this right now and you want to follow Alexis on her journey, what is the best place for people to find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Alexis 2_, Rae 2_, or you can find me at alexusrae.com and that like has all the details.
I love that. Amazing. Last thing for any woman that is listening right now, one thing to leave her with, Alexis. Just not even overthinking, just the first thing that comes to your mind.
Yeah, the first thing that comes to my mind is like if you're teetering on something and you're anywhere between 52 and 70%, then it's a hell yes and you should go for it.
Well, hell yeah, let's go. Amazing. Thank you so much for being here today. Again, thank you for, if you're watching this, please go send this episode to maybe a friend of yours or another woman that's in sales, woman that is going through it, that needs some insight. We as women get to come together as a community and keep sharing knowledge and honoring and supporting each other. If you have a story and you want to be on this podcast, comment below and we will get you on. Hope you have an amazing day. Again, thank you so much, Alexis, for being here. Bye, guys.